I've been meditating for 10 years now, and I want to tell you about the journey I've been through in those 10 years and the different benefits, but also the negative things that have come about because of my spiritual journey and because of my meditation itself, I guess, if you really think about it. So, yeah, awesome. Well, let's get into it. Year one. So, year one, I was coming off of being an atheist for a couple of years when I was younger, and I really didn't know what to think of the universe. I didn't know what to think of existence. And I remember coming across some content that taught me how to meditate, and I started to follow it because I had this feeling that it might be a good idea. And I was able to still my mind. And I started to realize that there was something more than just learning about stuff and doing things. I learned that there was a deeper dimension that affects things on a sub level before the actual thing that you're doing on the top level. So there's a really important deeper layer that I started to become aware of. I started to realize that if I could just be in this more present state where I'm not a victim to the spinning wheels of my mind all the time, then I could actually be a much better person, and I could get a lot more done, and I could be more successful, and I could love people in a better way. So I started to have all these realizations, and I realized that spirituality, meditation, self-improvement, I realized that was the path for me. So year two is when I started to discover energy work. And this was a really good thing. And I started to get really good at energy work really fast. And what I think now is because it's from past lives. I think in past lives, I've done a lot of energy work. I've had a lot of spiritual paths in different lives. And I really instinctively learned how to do a lot of energy work right away and started doing it on a really high level. The problem was I had not deconstructed and become aware of the unconsciousness of my ego enough yet. So I still had a lot of arrogance. I still had a lot of pride. I still wanted to use spirituality to turn me into something better than I was, so that I could get more things out of life and so that I could become, different. I could change and not be me. I still didn't want to be me. And that's, a core thing in true, authentic spirituality is actually enjoying being who you are. It's so funny looking back. So I learned how to create more energy, and it started to impact my life. I started to become more attractive. I started to become more charismatic. I started to make better music because I had started making music around this time as well. And I still make music. I love it. But yeah, I started to get a little bit arrogant. I was definitely more confident because of the energy work. Energy work can make you really, really confident, especially if you're also paired with being really present and aware in the mind. So I was able to get into these states, but I didn't notice the unconsciousness of my ego, the pride, the feeling of wanting to be superior or wanting to be different than I am, right? That sensation. So year three, I was doing really intense chakra work, and I accidentally had a Kundalini awakening. And I have a whole video on this. A lot of you have probably already seen this, but I have a video on it. And it's one of my most popular videos on this channel. And it's an amazing story about when I had my Kundalini awakening, how intense it was and how overwhelming. It was so unexpected. I had no idea what a Kundalini awakening was when this happened. At the time, I had just been learning about energy work, and I knew how to still my mind, and I knew that I was starting to see that there was guides and like a guiding energy in my life that was moving me towards a higher vibration. But I really was still a baby on the journey. And I activated my Kundalini and I really felt like a completely different being. And I just really wanted to feel normal. I just wanted to go back to feeling like a normal human being. I had, I guess, like, I wouldn't call it spiritual psychosis because I had my like day to day together. Like, I was still going to school, I was talking to people. I would definitely have mental freakouts though, like in my own head. And I would definitely got very overwhelmed a lot of the time and didn't know what was going on. But I wouldn't say I really reached the point of like a psychosis or anything. But it's that same thing definitely could cause psychosis for some people, and that's the thing with the spiritual journey is if you're deconstructing your mind and if you're uncovering all your traumas, you might not be able to handle it. Like, there's a reason you hid all that stuff. It's because you couldn't handle it. So if you start just unbuckling every single trauma and every single like negative belief that's influencing you in some sort of way, if you start just unearthing everything in your subconscious, you can very often overwhelm yourself because you put it there because you couldn't handle it in the first place. So obviously, it's going to be kind of tough to handle even now. So you got to pace yourself with the way that you go about your shadow work and go about your transmuting. So, year 3, I had a Kundalini awakening, which wasn't all bad. Like, if you watch the video, there's a lot of good in it, but it definitely was too much too soon for me, I think, at the time. Later that year, I transferred from my local college to UCLA, and that's when my life started to get a lot more normal again, because I was constantly socializing and I was around people that were not always talking about spirituality, and I had a lot to do and to think about that didn't involve being spiritual and having spiritual energy. So I really started to blend in as a normal college student. So I was still meditating quite a bit, and it was mostly just normal stillness meditation. So I was using Headspace a lot then, I remember. And the main goal was just to get me into a focused state where I could be really social and, handle my day-to-day business and stuff. Because I was at college and I was meeting new people all the time and there was so much going on. So my meditations then were really focused on just, becoming more aligned and more aware and more conscious. I wasn't really diving into the depths at this time like I was the year before. And so I was seeing a lot of positive results because that's what I should have been doing at the time. A lot of people have this idea that they can heal themselves completely right away. So they start trying to heal everything that they become aware of. And this is a recipe for getting overwhelmed, like I said earlier. The next year, I started to meditate even more and do a lot of advanced energy work again. But at the same time, I was living a more low vibrational life. I was eating a lot of sugar, eating a lot of cheese, eating a lot of college foods, and I was also drinking a lot, and I was partying a lot. I snapped like a twig because I was doing such intense energy work, but I was not holding a high vibration in my life. So this was another mistake I made. This is in year 5. I started to basically have a huge mental breakdown because I couldn't handle it was literally like I couldn't handle the sensation in my body. It was so intense. So I balanced out by the end of the year, and then I ended up getting a full-time job doing commercial real estate. And this is when I really started to get pretty normal. It was like 2 or 3 years after my Kundalini experience, and I started to finally balance out and stabilize. Because, in the first year or so, after you have a really big spiritual awakening, even the first 2 years, you have a lot of emotions and energy to integrate. And you really feel like you're never going to feel normal again. But after like 3 years, after a huge awakening, you start to feel normal again. Things start to balance out. and you start to integrate what you've seen, and you start to understand yourself in a really deep way, and it becomes really good. It becomes really awesome to have this experience, you know? So then, yeah, so then year 6, I stopped partying and got my life together, graduated college, and so I was interning at my full-time job while I was in college, and then I graduated college, started working full-time in commercial real estate. So this year, my meditation was like it was 2 years before, where I was just really focused on becoming more still, becoming more present, and processing any small triggers that came up in my daily life. Like if someone made me feel anxious, or if a task I had to do made me feel anxious, I might do some energy work or some breath work. I also was doing breath work a lot this year. This is when I really got into breath work. When I started to get into breath work, I started to do it a lot when I was working my full-time job. So then year 7 comes around, and I am doing intense amounts of spiritual work. I'm doing breath work every day. I'm doing meditations every day. And I'm actually at a balanced and stable place where I can really start digging into those deeper emotions and energies that are stuck within. So I really start going on this deeper journey of unearthing my ancestral trauma and my past life traumas and a lot of my childhood energies that have been stuck that are affecting my mind. And I was actually so deep on this journey and so into it that I started posting about it, and I ended up going viral and starting my content and starting my coaching business because my content started doing so well. I started connecting with a ton of people, and they would reach out to me with questions, and they would end up working with me as one-on-one coaching clients, or in one of my group mentoring programs, or as, you know, sometimes I used to do energy healing sessions. I don't really do that anymore. But I would have so many people reach out to me that I ended up quitting my job. And this is 4 years ago now. So I ended up quitting my job and doing spiritual work full time. So I do spiritual work full time, do coaching and energy work and breath work facilitation for people full time. And it's my deepest passion, and it makes me so happy. And it's, you know, because of the ups and downs of this journey, I ended up doing this full time. So year 7, I ended up building this 6-figure coaching business, traveling the world. I felt on top of the world. I was doing a ton of breath work and meditation every single day. And my vibration was really high, and I was really, you know, just on top of everything. And, you know, that was a very great year, but also very stressful, a lot of changes, a lot of expansions. But my meditation and my breath work, doing like an hour a day of meditation and breath work, really helped keep my energy in tip-top shape during this period. So then the next year, year 8, I did ayahuasca, and it brought up so many triggers that I was, at the time, I maybe wasn't even ready to deal with all the stuff that it brought up, but it brought up a lot of stuff nonetheless. And I went into the small dark night of the soul. So I was still doing a lot of meditation and breath work, probably a little bit less than the year before, but I was facing deeper blocks that just weren't moving. And those deeper blocks I found later to be ancestral traumas that I have been healing for my ancestral line. And it's really important to realize that not everything you process, not everything you feel belongs to you as a human. But at the time, Source was guiding me to heal these ancestral traumas. So if I was going after these ancestral traumas in year 3, you know, it would have backfired and caused me to have overwhelming experiences. But because I was doing it in year 8, I was actually able to start processing it all. Let's see. Yeah, I still maintained my coaching business because I was still able to help people, and I was still in a generally high vibration, but I definitely went through a lot of just periods of really deep purging and almost like flu-like symptoms, my body going through a transformation as I was releasing these really deep energies from my DNA. And then we have, so then year 9, my vibration rose again, and I was still in somewhat of a dark night because I was honestly so shocked by the expanse of what I had experienced. And I was still meditating a lot, and I got into a much higher vibration than I was the year before. But like I said, I was shocked. After you really see a lot on the spiritual path, it's shocking. It's shocking to know that you're a part of it as well, that you're one with it. Existence is really wild, and energy can get really intense, and life is a very miraculous, insane thing to be a part of. And yeah, it really is. And I was doing a lot of chakra work and breath work and releasing old trapped emotions in my organs. I was doing a lot of that type of work in year 9. And then year 10, which is this year, which is almost over, I was faced off with the darkest energies and deepest wounds, and also a lot of problems in my personal life. And my meditation and breath work has been at a really high level. I feel really awesome like every single day. Those days come around where you just don't really know where you're going and things kind of feel lost and stuck. And those days usually help me redirect myself, and I think they're actually important. And I guess they don't trigger me anymore. I accept it. If I'm in a lower state, I'm fine with it. I know it's going to pass. And I might feel a little bit down. I might feel a little bit like, I don't know what to do. But I know that eventually it's going to pass. I have this deep sensation of this too shall pass. And meditating now for me, I really just don't get triggered by a lot. I really don't get anxious very much. I used to have so much anxiety. I've really processed a lot of my early childhood energies and a lot of my ancestral energies. I've faced so many of my fears that I'm really not afraid on a daily basis. Even on a minuscule level, I don't really get anxiety. I definitely get fatigue, and I get a little bit of like lackluster energy still. I'm not like bouncing off the walls, super excited about life all the time, but I definitely don't really get into lower states of consciousness very often. I do here and there. Like I said, I have my days, but most days are really solid and really crystal clear. That's how I would say it. Most days are crystal clear. My awareness is just kind of open. My mind is pretty silent, and I'm just moving towards my goals, and I'm achieving a lot of my goals, and life is good. I think it's okay to have the cycle of emotion and energies.